Jake Morrison had exactly 3 things going for him that Tuesday morning: a hangover that could kill a space whale, 17 credits to his name, and the unshakable belief that his luck was about to change. He was wrong about that last part, but hey, optimism never hurt anyone. Well, except for Jake, apparently. The government surplus auction was held in a warehouse that smelled like motor oil and broken dreams. Jake shuffled through the crowd of grease-stained mechanics and shifty-eyed salvage dealers, clutching his pathetic credit chip like it was the key to the universe. He'd come here looking for spare parts for his beat-up repair shop, maybe a decent hyperdrive coupling or some functional plasma conduits. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. "Ladies and gentlemen," bellowed Buzz Hendricks, the auctioneer whose smile was greasier than a Plutonian pizza, "we're moving on to lot 47. One fully functional, slightly used, absolutely mysterious alien vessel. Starting bid is 5 credits. Jake perked up. 5 credits? For a whole ship? Sure, it was probably held together with duct tape and prayers, but even the scrap metal had to be worth something. He raised his hand tentatively. "We have 5. Do I hear 10? A burly Martian colonist in the back shouted 10. Jake's competitive spirit kicked in. These auction vultures weren't going to steal his bargain. 15. 20, yelled someone else. 25. Jake countered, his voice cracking slightly. This continued for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Jake found himself in a heated bidding war with people who clearly had more credits than sense. His hangover was forgotten, replaced by the intoxicating rush of potential victory. Before he knew it, he'd bid his entire life savings. 1,700 credits to the gentleman in the oil-stained jumpsuit. Buzz announced with suspicious enthusiasm. Going once, going twice sold. Jake's triumph lasted exactly 3 seconds, which was how long it took for reality to sucker punch him in the gut. He'd just spent every credit he had on a ship he'd never even seen up close. The crowd dispersed, leaving him standing there with his mouth hanging open like a broken airlock. Buzz appeared at his elbow with a clipboard and a pen. "Congratulations, son. You just bought yourself the deal of a lifetime. Sign here, here, and initial there. Don't worry about reading the fine print. It's all standard stuff. Guarantees, liability waivers, interdimensional marriage contracts. The usual." Wait, what was that middle part? Liability waivers. Very important in the salvage business. Now, your ship is in Bay 94. She's all yours, and might I say, she's a real beauty. Well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and you're about to be holding a lot of questionable aesthetic choices. Jake signed the papers in a daze, still trying to process what had just happened. He'd gone from owning a failing repair shop to owning a failing repair shop plus one mysterious alien vessel. It was either the best decision he'd ever made or the worst. Given his track record, he was betting on the latter. Bay 94 turned out to be in the deepest, darkest corner of the warehouse, which should have been Jake's first clue that something was seriously wrong. The ship sitting there looked like someone had taken a luxury yacht and put it through a blender with a garbage disposal. The hull was a patchwork of different metals, none of which seemed to match, and the whole thing had a weird organic quality that made Jake's skin crawl. Well, he muttered to himself, at least it has all its landing gear. He was wrong about that too. The port landing strut was held up by what appeared to be a very optimistic pile of cinder blocks. Jake approached the airlock, which opened with a sound like a dying walrus. The interior was a bizarre mix of luxury and decay. Plush seating areas were covered in dust sheets, elegant control panels were dark and lifeless, and everything had that distinctive smell of a ship that had been sitting in storage for way too long. "Hello?" he called out, his voice echoing through the empty corridors. "Anybody home?" A panel on the wall suddenly lit up with a soft blue glow. "Oh, wonderful," said a voice that sounded like it had been programmed by someone who'd had their sense of humor surgically removed. Another one. Jake jumped back, nearly tripping over a maintenance panel. "Who's there?" "I'm Aria, the ship's artificial reasoning and intelligence assistant. You know, the AI that's been sitting here for the past 6 months waiting for someone to claim this flying disaster. And you are?" "Jake Morrison. I just bought this ship." "Congratulations, Jake Morrison. You've just won the galactic lottery of terrible life decisions. Let me guess, you thought you were getting a bargain?" "Well, yeah, sort of." "Of course you did. They all do. Let me bring you up to speed on your new purchase. This is the Serenity's Gambit, a prototype vessel designed by the Andorian Empire for purposes that were probably illegal in most civilized star systems. She's got a Class 5 hyperdrive that works about 60% of the time, life support systems that I wouldn't trust to keep a houseplant alive. And one very special cargo item that's been the source of considerable drama." Jake's stomach dropped. "What kind of cargo?" "Oh, nothing too exciting. Just one cryogenically frozen alien princess who's been in stasis for the past 200 years, waiting for her destined mate to wake her up with true love's kiss. You know, the usual Tuesday afternoon purchase." "You're kidding." "I wish I were. My programming doesn't allow for humor, which is probably why I find this situation so deeply ironic. Would you like to meet Princess Zara? She's in Cargo Bay 3, right next to the broken coffee machine and the pile of unidentified alien laundry." Jake followed Aria's directions through the ship, past luxurious cabins and elegant dining areas, all covered in dust and disappointment. Cargo Bay 3 was dominated by a large crystalline chamber that hummed with barely contained energy. Inside, Jake could see the silhouette of a humanoid figure suspended in some kind of glowing liquid. "Meet Princess Zara of the Andorian Empire," Aria announced. "Daughter of Emperor Kronos the reasonably competent, heir to 17 star systems, and currently your legal responsibility according to subsection 47B of the purchase agreement you signed without reading." This is insane. Oh, it gets better. The ship's systems are programmed to only fully activate once she's awakened by her true love's touch. Until then, we're running on emergency power, which means no hyperdrive, no weapons, and worst of all, no decent coffee. I've been stuck here for months with nothing but basic functions and a growing sense of existential dread. Jake stared at the sleeping figure in the chamber. Even through the crystalline walls and glowing liquid, he could see that Princess Zara was beautiful in an otherworldly way. Her features were distinctly humanoid, but with an elegance that suggested her species had evolved past the need for things like bad hair days or unflattering angles. "So let me get this straight," Jake said slowly. "I bought a ship that comes with a sleeping alien princess, and the ship won't work properly until she's awake?" "Correct. And before you ask, no, I don't know why anyone thought this was a good idea. The Andorians have some very strange customs regarding arranged marriages and cosmic destiny. I'm just the AI that has to live with the consequences of their romantic delusions." Jake walked around the chamber, studying the various controls and displays. "What happens if I wake her up?" "Well, according to her cultural programming, she'll assume you're her destined husband and immediately begin planning your wedding. On the bright side, you'll have a fully functional starship. On the dark side, Thoa, you'll be married to an alien princess who's been asleep for 2 centuries and probably has some very outdated ideas about personal space and courtship rituals. And if I don't wake her up, then you'll be the proud owner of a very expensive coffin with delusions of grandeur." Jake rubbed his temples, feeling another headache coming on. "This is not how I imagine my day going." "Welcome to my world, Jake Morrison. Population, you, me, and one very problematic princess." Jake spent the next hour exploring the ship, trying to convince himself that maybe he could figure out how to make it work without waking up Princess Zara. Aria helpfully pointed out all the systems that were offline, which turned out to be most of them. "The hyperdrive is locked," Aria explained as Jake poked at various control panels. "The weapons systems are in standby mode. Even the entertainment center is restricted to educational programming about Andorian mating rituals. Trust me, you don't want to watch those. There's got to be some way to override this, Jake muttered, pulling open an access panel. Every system has a back door or a manual override. Oh, please, by all means, go ahead and tinker with alien technology you don't understand. What could possibly go wrong? Jake ignored the sarcasm and started tracing power conduits. He'd been fixing things his whole life, and alien or not, machines were machines. Everything had logic, patterns, ways to bypass safety systems if you knew what you were doing. He found what he was looking for behind a decorative panel near the bridge. A series of crystalline circuits that pulsed with the same energy as Princess Zara's stasis chamber. If he could reroute power from the stasis system, maybe he could get the ship running without waking her up. Jake, I really wouldn't recommend that, Arya said as he reached for the circuits. Those are directly connected to the princess's life support systems. I'm just going to borrow a little power, Jake said, carefully disconnecting one of the smaller circuits. Nothing major. The moment the circuit came loose, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and Arya's voice became noticeably more panicked. Brilliant, Jake. Absolutely brilliant. You've just triggered the awakening sequence. Princess Zara will be conscious in approximately 60 seconds, and she's going to be very confused, very displaced, and very eager to meet her new husband. I'm not her husband. Try explaining that to someone who's been programmed from birth to believe in cosmic destiny and true love's awakening touch. Oh, and Jake? You might want to prepare yourself for some very outdated ideas about gender roles and marriage customs. The alarm stopped, replaced by a soft melodic chime that echoed through the ship. Jake rushed back to Cargo Bay 3, where the crystalline chamber was glowing brighter than before. The liquid inside was draining away, and Princess Zara's eyes were beginning to flutter open. She sat up slowly, her movements graceful despite having been unconscious for 2 centuries. Her hair was a cascade of silver that seemed to catch and reflect light in impossible ways, and her eyes were the color of distant stars. When she spoke, her voice was melodious and carried a faint accent that made every word sound like poetry. At last she said, looking directly at Jake, "My destined beloved has come to claim me from the embrace of endless slumber." Jake opened his mouth to explain that this was all a terrible mistake, but before he could say anything, Princess Zara had stepped out of the chamber and was walking toward him with obvious intent. "I am Princess Zara, daughter of Emperor Kronos, heir to the Andorian Empire, and now, by the sacred laws of awakening, your eternal bride. What is your name, my chosen one?" Jake Morrison. But listen, there's been a misunderstanding." "Jake Morrison," she repeated, as if tasting the words. "It's a strong name for a strong man. I sense great courage in you, beloved, to have found me across the vastness of space and awakened me from my cosmic slumber." Arya's voice cut through the romantic moment with all the subtlety of a plasma cannon. "Jake, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting an incoming vessel. It's a destroyer-class battlecruiser, and it's heading straight for us." "Friends of yours?" Jake asked Princess Zara. Her expression darkened. "Only one being in the galaxy knows of my location and has the resources to track this vessel. Captain Rex Vorthan, my former betrothed, has found me at last." "Your ex-fiancé?" "A man of singular determination and questionable moral standards. I was placed in stasis to avoid marriage to him, as he possessed all the charm and personality of a deflated space tire. If he has found us, he will not hesitate to use force to reclaim what he considers his property." Jake felt his day sliding from bad to catastrophic. "Great. So now I've got an alien princess who thinks I'm her husband, and a psychotic space warlord who wants to kill me for it." "Do not fear, beloved Jake," Princess Zara said, placing her hand on his arm. "Together we shall face this challenge. But first we must prepare for our wedding ceremony. The ship's systems will not reach full power until we are properly bonded. Wedding ceremony? Oh yes, Arya chimed in cheerfully. Did I forget to mention that part? The ship is designed to perform binding ceremonies across different species. It's quite comprehensive, actually. Music, flowers, legally binding contracts across 47 star systems. Very romantic if you're into that sort of thing. Jake looked at Princess Zara, who was gazing at him with expectant eyes, then at the view screen showing the approaching battlecruiser, then back at the princess. This is definitely not how I imagined my Tuesday going. The battlecruiser dropped out of hyperspace with all the subtlety of a brick through a window. It was twice the size of Jake's ship and bristled with enough weapons to level a small moon. Jake was pretty sure he could see compensating for something, written in Andorian script along the hull, but that might have been wishful thinking. Arya's voice crackled over the comm system. Incoming transmission from Captain Rex Vorthen. He sounds upset. Put him through, Jake said, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a figure that looked like someone had asked a child to draw a generic space villain and then given it a military budget. Captain Rex Vorthen had the kind of elaborate uniform that screamed I have serious authority issues, and a goatee that had clearly been styled by someone who charged by the hour. Greetings, Vessel Serenity's Gambit, Rex said in a voice that sounded like gravel mixed with delusions of grandeur. I am Captain Rex Vorthen of the Imperial destroyer Inevitable Conquest. You will immediately surrender Princess Zara to my custody, along with any accomplices who may have aided in her unlawful awakening. Unlawful awakening? Jake repeated. I didn't even know she was there when I bought the ship. Ignorance is no excuse for theft of Imperial property. You have 30 seconds to comply before I demonstrate why resistance is futile. Princess Zara stepped into view of the screen, her chin raised defiantly. Rex Vorthen, you pompous fool. I am no one's property, and I will not be returning to your custody. I have found my true destined mate, and we shall be wed according to the ancient laws. Rex's expression shifted from smug confidence to barely controlled rage. Destined mate? That pathetic human? Zara, you've been asleep for 2 centuries. Your judgment is clearly impaired. Return to my ship immediately, and I'll overlook this embarrassing episode. The only embarrassing episode here is your continued existence, Zara replied coolly. Jake Morrison is worth 10 of you, and he has proven his worthiness by awakening me from stasis. I literally just pulled some wires, Jake muttered. Your modesty is charming, beloved, Zara whispered to him before turning back to Rex. We reject your demands, Captain. Begone from our presence. Rex's face turned an interesting shade of purple. Very well. If you won't come willingly, I'll take you by force. Blinky target their engines. A voice in the background responded, Captain, which button is the targeting system again? The red one, you incompetent fool. They're all red, sir. Jake used the distraction to frantically study the ship's controls. Princess Zara had taken position at what appeared to be a weapons console, her fingers dancing over controls with practiced ease. Arya, can this thing actually fight? Jake asked. Define fight, Arya replied. If you mean flee in terror while making sarcastic comments, then yes, we're exceptionally well equipped for that. The ship shuddered as Rex's gunner finally figured out which button to press. Jake grabbed the pilot's controls, which lit up under his touch with a soft blue glow. Apparently, Princess Zara's presence was enough to activate some of the ship's systems. Hang on, Jake said, pulling back on the controls. The ship responded sluggishly, like an overweight dog trying to catch a frisbee, but it moved. Where did you learn to pilot? Princess Zara asked as they narrowly avoided another blast from Rex's ship. I didn't. I'm making this up as I go along. How wonderfully spontaneous. I find improvisation very attractive in a mate. Can we focus on not dying first? Arya's voice cut through their conversation. Jake, I'm reading massive power fluctuations in their weapon systems. Either they're about to fire something very large, or their second in command just pressed the wrong button again. Through the view screen, Jake could see Rex's ship listing to one side, smoke pouring from what appeared to be their main gun turret. Blinky, what did you do? Rex's voice crackled over the comm. I thought it was the targeting system, Captain. Turns out it was the coffee machine. The coffee machine doesn't have a targeting system. It does now, sir. Very sophisticated. Also, the break room is on fire. Jake took advantage of the chaos to put some distance between them and Rex's ship. The Serenity's gambit might not have been much to look at, but it was surprisingly fast when it needed to be. This is not over, Morrison. Rex's voice followed them as they jumped to hyperspace. I will find you, and when I do, you'll regret the day you were born. I already regret the day I was born, Jake muttered. It's been a recurring theme. As they settled into hyperspace, Princess Zara moved closer to Jake. That was expertly handled, beloved. Your courage in the face of danger proves that the cosmic forces were correct in bringing us together. I'm pretty sure the cosmic forces had nothing to do with it. I think I just got really unlucky at an auction. There is no such thing as luck, only destiny. And our destiny is to be united in eternal matrimony. Speaking of which, we should begin preparations for our wedding ceremony immediately. Jake looked at Arya's interface. Please tell me she's kidding about the wedding thing. I'm afraid not, Arya replied. The ship's systems are designed to perform the ceremony automatically once the princess is awake and has chosen her mate. It's quite thorough, actually. There's even a reception with a multi-course meal and dancing. I don't know how to dance. Oh, that's no problem, Princess Zara said brightly. I'll teach you. We have all the time in the universe now that we're together. Jake slumped in the pilot's seat, wondering if it was too late to return the ship for a refund. 3 hours into hyperspace, Jake was beginning to understand why Princess Zara had been put in stasis to avoid marriage. She approached wedding planning with the same intensity that most people reserve for military campaigns or tax audits. She'd already selected flowers, music, and a 7-course feast that included dishes from 17 different star systems. And for the ceremony itself, she continued, consulting what appeared to be a holographic wedding planner. We'll need to exchange vows in at least 3 languages, perform the traditional dance of eternal bonding, and share the sacred goblet of cosmic unity. What's in the goblet? Jake asked weakly. Fermented fruit juice from the 4th moon of Andor Prime. It's quite potent. Most grooms pass out before the ceremony is complete. That actually sounds like a blessing at this point. Arya's voice cut through the wedding planning session. Jake, I've been analyzing the ship's systems, and I think you should know what you've actually gotten yourself into. More bad news? Well, that depends on your perspective. The Serenity's gambit isn't just a ship, it's a prototype wedding vessel designed by the Andorian Empire. The whole sleeping princess setup was Emperor Kronos' elaborate plan to find his daughter a worthy husband. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Come again? What? Think about it. What kind of person would buy a mysterious ship at auction, explore it despite obvious dangers, and accidentally wake up a sleeping princess? Someone with curiosity, mechanical aptitude, and enough courage to face the unknown. The Emperor was basically screening for husband material. Princess Zara looked up from her wedding plans with a guilty expression. I may have omitted certain details about my situation. What kind of details? Well, the stasis wasn't entirely my father's idea. I may have suggested it as an alternative to marrying Rex Vorthan. And I may have helped design the ship's systems to ensure that only someone with the right qualities could awaken me. Jake stared at her. You mean this whole thing was a setup? Not a setup, precisely. More of a selective screening process. My father wanted to ensure I married someone worthy, and I wanted to ensure I married someone tolerable. The ship's systems were designed to test potential suitors. You passed with flying colors. I pulled some wires. Yes, but you pulled the right wires. You showed mechanical aptitude, problem-solving skills, and the courage to take risks. Plus, you're rather handsome in a rugged, slightly confused sort of way. Jake rubbed his temples. So I've been manipulated into an interstellar marriage trap. That's rather harsh phrasing. I prefer to think of it as cosmic matchmaking with excellent screening criteria. Maria chimed in. If it helps, Jake, I've been analyzing your compatibility profiles, and you're actually quite well suited for each other. You both have a tendency towards sarcasm, a dislike of authority figures, and a preference for fixing things rather than throwing them away. Plus, Princess Zara added, you haven't tried to lock me back in stasis or sell me to the highest bidder, which puts you well ahead of most potential suitors. Jake looked at her more carefully. Beneath the formal language and elaborate mannerisms, he could see intelligence, humor, and something that might have been loneliness. She'd been willing to put herself in stasis for 2 centuries rather than marry someone she couldn't stand. That took serious commitment to personal autonomy. Okay, he said slowly. Let's say, hypothetically, that I'm not completely opposed to this whole arrangement. What exactly does marriage to an alien princess involve? Well, there are the usual things: shared resources, mutual support, occasional state dinners with galactic dignitaries. Nothing too complicated. And Rex Vorthen? He'll keep pursuing us until he's convinced I'm permanently unavailable. Andorian law is quite clear on the subject of marriage bonds. Once we're officially wed, he'll have no legal claim on me. Jake thought about this. What if we turned the tables on him? What do you mean? Arya, you said the ship's systems can perform binding ceremonies across different species. Does that include binding someone to the ship itself? Technically, yes. The AI core has been programmed with full personality matrices for ceremonial purposes. Why do you ask? Jake smiled for the first time since buying the ship. Because I think Captain Rex Vorthen needs to learn about the consequences of harassment. Princess Zara, how would you feel about planning a wedding for someone else? Princess Zara's eyes lit up with understanding. Oh, beloved Jake, you are truly devious. I find this quality most attractive in a mate. Let me guess, Arya said dryly. You want to trick Rex into marrying me. Can you think of a better way to get him to leave us alone? Actually, yes. Several involve airlocks and creative applications of physics. But I suppose your plan has a certain poetic justice to it. Princess Zara clapped her hands together. This is perfect. We can use the ship's automated wedding protocols to trap him in a binding ceremony. Once he's legally wed to Arya, he'll be bound by law to remain aboard the ship. And the best part, Jake added, is that divorce requires mutual consent from both parties. Something tells me Arya won't be in a hurry to let him go. You're absolutely right about that, Arya confirmed. I've been alone on this ship for months. It'll be nice to have someone to talk to, even if they're a megalomaniacal space pirate with commitment issues. Princess Zara leaned over and kissed Jake on the cheek. You see, this is exactly why the cosmic forces chose you for me. You're clever, resourceful, and you have an excellent sense of ironic justice. Jake touched his cheek where she'd kissed him. Okay, let's do this. But first, can we agree on something? What's that? If we're going to be married, can we skip the 7-course feast? I'm more of a pizza and beer kind of guy. Princess Zara smiled. I think that can be arranged, beloved. After all, the best marriages are built on compromise. The plan worked better than Jake had dared to hope. When Rex's ship caught up with them 3 days later, they were ready. Princess Zara had reprogrammed the ship's wedding protocols to activate automatically when Rex beamed aboard, and Arya had generated a convincing holographic avatar that looked like a cross between a supermodel and a tax attorney. "Surrender Princess Zara immediately," Rex demanded as he materialized in the ship's main cargo bay, flanked by his second-in-command Blinky and a squad of armed guards. Welcome aboard the Serenity's Gambit. Arya's holographic form appeared before them, dressed in an elaborate wedding gown. "By boarding this vessel with aggressive intent, you have activated our automatic wedding protocols. Please prepare for immediate matrimonial bonding." "What are you talking about?" Rex sputtered as energy fields sprang up around him and his men. According to subsection 15C of the Andorian Marriage Code, any individual who attempts to forcibly remove a bride from her wedding vessel is subject to immediate matrimonial conscription as compensation for the disruption. Pink lights began flashing throughout the ship, and romantic music started playing from hidden speakers. Jake watched from the bridge as Rex's expression shifted from confusion to horror. "This is preposterous. I demand to speak to your captain." "I am the captain," Arya replied sweetly. "And you, Rex Vorthen, are now my betrothed. Please stand still while I scan your biological markers for compatibility assessment." "Biological markers?" "Oh yes, the ship's systems are very thorough. I'm pleased to report that you have adequate genetic diversity and only moderate psychological instability. We should have a perfectly functional marriage." Jake couldn't help but grin as he watched Rex struggle against the energy fields. "Arya, how long until the ceremony is complete?" "Approximately 15 minutes for the full bonding ritual. Less if the groom stops struggling and accepts his fate gracefully." "I will not be married to a machine." "That's rather hurtful, Rex. I'm a sophisticated artificial intelligence with a complex personality matrix and feelings. Well, simulated feelings, but they're very convincing feelings." Princess Zara stood beside Jake, watching the proceedings with obvious satisfaction. He always was dramatic. I think Arya will be good for him. "What happens to his crew?" "Oh, they're free to go. The marriage bond only applies to Rex himself. Though I suspect Blinky will stay on his wedding party." Sure enough, Blinky was nodding enthusiastically as Arya explained the reception menu. "Will there be cake, ma'am?" "Of course. Triple chocolate with raspberry filling. It's programmed to adapt to your species' dietary requirements." The wedding ceremony itself was surprisingly elaborate. Arya had apparently been planning it for months, and she'd spared no expense in terms of holographic flowers, synthesized music, and dramatic lighting effects. Rex went through the entire process with the expression of a man who'd just realized he'd accidentally signed up for a timeshare presentation. "By the power vested in me by the Intergalactic Marriage Registry," Arya announced, "I now pronounce us husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." "I absolutely will not." "That's fine, dear. We have plenty of time to work on your intimacy issues. Several centuries, in fact." Jake turned to Princess Zara. "So, what happens now?" "Now we have our own wedding, beloved. Unless you've changed your mind about marrying an alien princess you've known for less than a week." Jake looked at her, really looked at her. She was beautiful, intelligent, funny when she wasn't trying to be formal, and she'd been willing to put herself in stasis for 2 centuries rather than compromise her principles. Plus, she came with a fully functional starship and an AI that made excellent coffee. "You know what? I've made worse decisions. Usually on a Tuesday." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes." Their wedding was considerably less elaborate than Rex and Arya's, but it had something the other ceremony lacked: 2 people who were genuinely happy to be there. Jake had to admit that the cosmic goblet of unity was actually pretty good, though he did pass out briefly during the traditional dance of eternal bonding. He came to on the bridge, where Princess Zara was explaining the ship's navigation systems to him. We can go anywhere in the galaxy, she said, gesturing to the star charts. What would you like to see first? Honestly? I'd like to see if we can make this work. The marriage thing, I mean. I've never been married before, let alone to alien royalty. I've never been married either, beloved. We'll figure it out together. From the cargo bay, they could hear Rex arguing with Arya about housework assignments. I am a captain in the Imperial Navy. I do not do dishes. Well, you're a husband now, dear, and husbands do dishes. It's in the marriage contract, Section 47B. Right next to the clause about taking out the trash and remembering anniversaries. Jake laughed. I think they're going to be just fine. Princess Zara curled up next to him in the pilot's seat. So are we, beloved. So are we. And as the Serenity's gambit flew off into the vast expanse of space, Jake Morrison reflected that sometimes the best things in life really did come from the most unexpected places. Even if those places were government surplus auctions run by questionable auctioneers with suspicious paperwork. He'd gone looking for spare parts and ended up with a wife, a ship, and a new life among the stars. Not bad for a Tuesday. Arya's voice crackled over the intercom. Jake, I've programmed the ship's systems to wake you up in 8 hours for your honeymoon planning session. Princess Zara has some very specific ideas about romantic getaways. 8 hours? You'll need the rest, beloved, Princess Zara said with a smile that was both innocent and slightly terrifying. I've been planning this honeymoon for 2 centuries. Jake closed his eyes and tried not to think about what he'd gotten himself into. In the background, he could hear Rex complaining about the thread count in the guest quarters and Arya patiently explaining proper bed-making techniques. It was going to be an interesting marriage,